I'm not a big fan of when people refer to certain foods as guilty pleasures. Why guilt? If it makes you happy, why fight it? What we're talking about here is transcendent. The joy it brings does not discriminate. No matter your age, what your beliefs, or whether you're chocolate or vanilla. Ice cream's gonna put a smile on your face, bring people together, and possibly diffuse a tantrum. So today, I want to explore the recipe, and more importantly, the process of making any flavor ice cream you can dream up. Maybe something you've never even heard of. So let's channel that inner child, drop the guilt, and churn up some pleasure.
So every season here at the Bistro, we always have a house-made ice cream, something for the season, something fun, something you can't buy in stores, something you've never heard of. So every fall, I make a Rosemary Caramel Ice Cream, and it's become a fan favorite. It's become something that people ask for every year, and they wait for it, and I serve it with a baked apple crisp. So I'm gonna give you our house-made recipe for Rosemary Caramel Ice Cream. And in the process of giving you the recipe, I'll show you how you can incorporate whatever flavor you want to do to make your own flavor ice cream. So we're gonna start with half and half. It's 2.5 cups of half and half. All right, and we're gonna pour it in a small or medium tail pot. We're gonna bring the half and half up to a simmer. Now, whatever flavor you wanna do, this is where you're gonna incorporate the flavor, in the half and half when it's steeped. So we're gonna take some fresh rosemary, depending on how strong you want it. I usually like to take maybe 5 or 6 sprigs. Throw it right in with the half and half. Pinch of salt will bloom the flavor. And we're gonna put it on low heat, just to bring it up to a simmer. This will extract the oils from the herb, and the oils from the herbs will infuse into the cream. So let's let that go. We're gonna take a small bowl, we're gonna crack some eggs. So for 2.5 cups of half and half, we're gonna crack 8 eggs and just use the egg yolks. Okay, it's gonna make it nice and rich. So essentially, when you're making ice cream batter, you have to make a custard. You have to fold in heavy cream. So you have to cook the egg softly. That's what's gonna thicken it. So 8 egg yolks or a half a cup of egg yolks, whatever comes first. All right. So to your 8 egg yolks, we're gonna do 1 cup of sugar, granulated white sugar. And depending on your ice cream batter, maybe you could switch up the sugar. Maybe you could substitute the sugar. Maybe you could use brown sugar. You wanna do something like a bourbon brown sugar ice cream, this would be a good time to use the brown sugar. So here's your 1 cup sugar. So here in with the rosemary and the half and half, I'm just gonna put a capful of vanilla extract in here. Now, if we were making just vanilla ice cream, I would do a 1/4 cup. 1/4 cup of extract. If you were making, let's say you go to the store, you find pistachio extract, and you wanted to make pistachio ice cream. Again, a 1/4 cup of your extract, if that's the flavor you want to make. We just want a little touch of vanilla in here to complement the rosemary. So we're just gonna do a capful. That sounds really good, actually. Bourbon brown sugar ice cream. In which case I'd do like a 1/4 cup of bourbon in with the cream. And then I'd do a full cup of brown sugar in here. All right. So if you can see in here, Can you get all the way over here? Got little bubbles going on. So that's heating up the herb. All the oils are extracting. We're gonna turn this down a little bit. We don't want it to boil too hard. Cook it for maybe 3 minutes here. So I think we're good here. We're gonna take it off the heat and we're gonna let it sit and steep for about 15 minutes, all right? In the meantime, we're gonna start to make our caramel. All right, caramel. So we're gonna make about a cup of caramel. And we don't have to use all of it in the ice cream. You could use some, you could use none if you want. But we're gonna start with 3/4 cup of sugar. And we're gonna put it in the bottom of a medium-sized steel pot here. And I'm gonna add about 1/8 of a cup of water, just to loosen up the sugar and make it like wet sand. Okay, this way we're not cooking sugar directly on heat. Stir it right up with my finger here. Now to make this caramel, what we're gonna do is put it on high heat and we're gonna barely move it. We're gonna barely touch it. What we're not gonna do is stir it with a whisk or a spatula or anything like that. At the very most, you're gonna see that I'll just move the pot in a circular motion so one area of the pot doesn't start to burn while the other pot, or while the other side is just raw sugar that's not cooking. We'll just try to keep it incorporated, we'll try to keep it moving, but we don't want to stir it. We're just doing small circular movements here, just to keep the sugar moving, but not stirring. If you stir it up, it's gonna get like a really gummy consistency. Good to just let it cook for a few seconds and then give it a little movement. As you see around the outside here, you'll get a rich amber color and you'll start to smell the caramel. Obviously, it's gonna start to cook along the edges first. So see that? You could even smell it. You can even smell the caramel. Once you start to see it get just a little amber, you're gonna add your 3/4 cup heavy cream. As soon as we add it, it's gonna bubble up pretty aggressively. We're just gonna put it back on the heat and let it do its thing. All right, see that color? It's about like a nice amber. Here comes the heavy cream. Don't get scared, it's not gonna boil over unless your pot's too small. So you're gonna bring it to a full boil here. The sugar will initially seize and then all the cream will incorporate into the caramel and you'll have a nice smooth consistency. Now, you can bring your whisk in. Let it come back to a full boil. Pinch of salt. There's your caramel. Make sure you get yourself a hard plastic container to pour it into so it doesn't melt it. And you're gonna wanna make sure it's completely cool before you incorporate it into your ice cream, obviously. There's your caramel. And you can cool it at room temp. By the time the batter's cool, this will be plenty cool. All right, now let's finish making this batter. So we've let about 15 minutes go by with this rosemary steeping in the half and half. Now we're gonna squeeze all the herb out of it. All right, squeeze all the oil out of the herb into the half and half. You can see it's almost green. It's a very faint green. Really cool. Now, if some of the sprigs fall into the into the half and half. It's not a big deal. I mean, you could strain them out if you want, but I like to leave a couple in there just to let people know that it's genuine. All right, I'll give it another little bit of heat. Bring it back up to temperature. So in the meantime, we have our half cup or 8 egg yolks, 1 cup of full granulated sugar, or rather 1 full cup of granulated sugar. We're gonna incorporate that. I got this clever all-clad bowl that has a suction cup on the bottom, makes it easy to do your tempering. All right. Now we're gonna ladle the half and half while whisking the yolks and sugar. Look at this. It smells so good. Bringing up every fall memory that I've had in the past 10 years. So wonderful. All right, once about half of this is added, we're gonna add this back to the pot. Now, this is when we make the custard. Making the custard is a little bit of a tedious process. Before we put this back on the heat, we're gonna measure 2.5 cups of heavy cream, not half and half, but heavy cream. And we're gonna pour it into a plastic container. Once the custard's made and cooked, we're gonna add the custard to the heavy cream, okay? So we got 2.5 cups of half and half, 2.5 cups of heavy cream. All right, let's go to the heat. Now we're gonna do about medium heat here. We don't wanna cook it too hard, but we also don't wanna go too slow. Now it's key to keep this batter moving. Because if it stays stationary for too long, it's gonna start to cook on the bottom and curdle. So you're gonna have like chunks in your ice cream batter, chunks of overcooked egg. So you'll start to see this foam on top. And eventually all that foam is gonna dissipate. As this batter cooks, you'll start to feel a little resistance with your whisk as it thickens up. Now, essentially what we're doing is we're gently cooking these eggs slowly while moving them so not to curdle them. So we're gonna keep a stir on this. Every minute or so we'll stop, let it come up to temperature kinda, so it can indeed cook. What we're looking for is all the foam to kind of dissipate, and we're waiting for sporadic bubbles. Not like a boil, but we're just looking for boop, boop, boop around the edges. When you first see that, pretty much you're done cooking this. Once you see those couple bubbles, pull it right off the heat. Keep it stirred and moving. We're gonna go right into this heavy cream. Smooth. See a couple of those rosemary sprigs in there. Gives it authenticity. Look at that. Now we gotta cool this down completely for like 8 to 12 hours, or just until it's completely cooled. We don't wanna put warm batter in a frozen ice cream bowl. And And what I like to do is cover this with plastic wrap and kind of steam it to further the thickening of the custard. So there's that. We're gonna put this in the cooler. We'll come back to it in about 12 hours. In the meantime, you will have taken your ice cream bowl and put it in the freezer for up to 24 hours. I really wouldn't do it for less than 24 hours because you want that bowl to be as frozen as possible to churn this ice cream as efficiently as possible. So after your ice cream bowl has been in the freezer for 24 hours and your batter's cooled down completely for at least 12 hours, we're good to churn. So let's assemble this ice cream bowl on our KitchenAid. If you're doing this for home use, a small KitchenAid mixer will do the job. You don't need to spend $5,000 on an ice cream maker. If you're doing large batches or for commercial use, you probably should get one of those though. So we're gonna make sure our batter is completely cooled, otherwise if there's any sort of warmth to it still, it's gonna defeat the purpose of pouring it into a frozen bowl. So what these ice cream bowls have is a layer of water in between the stainless steel in the center and the outside. Obviously the layer of water freezes, and as the paddle turns the batter around, it incorporates air. It's going to thicken the whipped cream. So this is going to churn for probably about 20-25 minutes. You want to keep it moving. You can see it's already starting to thicken up around the edge. So it's obviously like, it looks like a melted milkshake at this point. It's going to churn up to look like soft serve ice cream. So let's let that churn for a while. All right, see how we got a nice soft serve consistency going on right here? We're good to go. Okay, at this point, this would be a good time to incorporate anything you wanted to add to the ice cream, if you wanted to put chocolate chips in it, or pretzel pieces, or whatever your heart desires. We're at a soft serve consistency, and so we're gonna shut this guy off. Drop the bowl down here. Okay. So my stainless steel bowl here, I just put it in the fridge for a couple minutes to cool it down. We're gonna put the ice cream right in the bowl. Scrape off all we can here. We want all that ice cream. Now, at this point, the ice cream is servable. Obviously, it's like soft serve, but after we fold in this caramel, we're gonna quart it up and we're gonna throw it in the freezer to let it set up a little further. Before that, we're gonna get everything out of this bowl that we can. It's got a beautiful vanilla rosemary nose on it, which is going to pair wonderfully with apple pie, apple crisp, baked pears, something for fall. This is a really nice ice cream for the fall. All right. So we got our ice cream here. We're going to simply, and you can use as much or as little caramel as you want. I mean, this is your ice cream. We want to make a little swirl. Look at that. There's our Rosemary Caramel Swirl ice cream. We serve this every fall here at Bad Apple's Bistro. with our baked apple crisp. It's a fan favorite. It's like a signature for the place. All right. So we're gonna cap these, throw them in the freezer for a couple hours, and then see where we're at. All right, we've given the ice cream a little while to harden up, set up a little bit. Look at that. Look how beautiful that is. This is like store-bought, right? Let's give it a little taste. I'll give you a little slice of apple. This is it, man. This is it right here. Look at that. That's the pleasure and the greed right there. So, my advice to you is get inspired. Find something you want to put together. Find some textures, some flavors, something you've never had before. Make your own ice cream. It's really not that hard. And it's really impressive to your friends, to your family. Most importantly, treat yourself.